So, anyways, 2024. You got Pat McAfee beefing with Norby. You've got
He's been there since '80.
We've got World War III possibly happening. There's a lot going on, and the thing that's going to bring us together is people's hatred of the Eagles. And you had Washington Commanders and Dallas fans coming together yesterday to say the Eagles suck. And you know what? Right now they're right. And if that's going to bring everybody together, then so be it. And they're one of America's teams. I don't know what to say about the Eagles that we haven't already said. Okay, I can't imagine.
Well, what gives there?
I can't imagine. They're just not. They're not as good as we thought they were.
The finger is
and they replaced 2 coordinators, and they're poorly coached.
See these fingers? That's what happens. That's what happens. That's what happens when your fingers do what Jalen's did.
But you're coming into the playoff game, and I think this collapse. Like, I still give them a lot of credit for starting the way they started, because most teams don't start that way off a Super Bowl run.
We're almost undefeated going into Arrowhead.
I think they just ran out of gas. They had some injuries that hurt them, and they had poor design, and they had to replace 2 offensive coordinators. These aren't excuses. These are why they're not good. Like, these are the reasons why they're not good.
They got a lot of Christmas albums.
Does it hurt my feelings? Because a lot of people will be like, after a game, they're like, ha, 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 at me. I'm like, bro, I'm not on the team, okay? And I'm glad I'm not on that team, okay? Because this would be the worst building to be in America. It would be better to be getting your exit meetings than to be in that building this morning.
1,000%.
The day after, when I talk to my boys on that team, about that game or whatever, like, my 2 cents is y'all got to go win that game going away to create a vibe going into the playoffs where you feel like you're back. Never in my wildest dreams. I thought they could lose the game, but never in my wildest dreams did I think you get run out of the stadium.
Dude,
and so
it was the tale of two. It was the tale of 2 different teams on different chapters, not even different pages. Like, the Eagles are so wound up tight. They don't have the answers. They're scratching and clawing, trying to get some oxygen. The Giants are loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor, we're going to throw it deep. We're going to take our shots. Justin Pugh's off the couch, and he's played every single game this season. That's a ragtag group, whereas the Eagles have high expectations. But to your point, rebounding from the Super Bowl, I've never done it, but that's a lot of football. It's a lot of days of football.
And that's why I want to give New England as an organization what they did over the last 20 years credit, because every time you see a team try to turn into this team that comes back and does it again, and I do think Philly's organizational structure is something to be, lauded. Like, over the last couple of years, they've been in the Super Bowl with 2 different quarterbacks. They've been with a backup. They replaced their franchise quarterback with a draft pick. They were able to get back. They've compiled assets. They've hit on draft picks. I have issues with some of the personnel decisions, like leaving the linebacker room to chance. I have issues with some of the back end stuff. The hiring of the coordinators, those are Sirianni's coordinators. He hired them. So if you're Philly, and I'm not saying I'm putting his head on a stake here, because I like Nick, but he would tell you it's not good enough. And after the game, to just come out and be like, this team will fight. That stuff is tired when you're not actually fighting. It works when you're fighting and when you're an actual underdog, but when people don't think of you that way and you just look like an exposed group that the bottom fell out of, that doesn't work. And so for me, actually, I think the best thing that could happen to them is going on the road and playing the Bucks, because I think if this team played at home, they'd piss down their legs because of the pressure. Yeah. The minute they get booed, the minute they go 3 and out.
Can you imagine?
I think going on the road, and I'm not saying they can beat the Bucks because I don't know, but I can't get it out of my head when they played them the first time. They ran the ball to finish the game for like 8 minutes. Okay, that's your shot. Can you still do that? I don't know. But Baker Mayfield been missing some balls. I'm not betting on the Eagles this weekend, but your ticket.
That's cap.
It's not cap. It's not cap. You can say it's cap. It's not cap. Look at my ticket at the end of the week. It's hollow. Hollow man Nate. I'm not betting on the Eagles.
I don't. Yeah. I mean,
but what I am going to say is, if they can run the ball, they have a shot.
Word.
And we're going to talk about this with Jacksonville. Jacksonville's got the same problem where they can't run the ball. They can't stop the run. That's what you got to be able to do late in the season. You can't even do that in a game like that. I mean, it's just. And I talked about New England. The reason I think New England's so amazing to me, yeah, they had the quarterback, but the attrition every year of playing into February and having to just get back on that hamster wheel and go out there the next year and live up to expectations, That's special.
It's crazy
And
because there's guys that played on each of these Super Bowl teams. Like I remember there's guys that I played with my rookie year when I took a trip across the pond that were like OGs for the Patriots. And I was like, oh, you had a Super Bowl. And they're like, no, I just missed it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I played with Joe Tooney and he got one. You know what I'm saying? Like, but then there's some guys in between that their stretch was so broad that some guys played for 8 years on the team and missed one.
Right.
But they were in a lot of championships.
Right. Yeah. I mean, listen. There's guys that played. There's guys that played an extra 3-4 seasons on those New England teams. You know, like
amount of playoffs.
You know, think about all those games and to be back there every year. That's why I think there's levels. Like the Philly organization is awesome. They have done some great things. I'm a fan of Howie. I'm a fan of Jeffrey. I love the city, but New England, I got to give credit where credit's due. That run, and it's only one team that's doing that, but you could also say the Ravens organizationally have been there a lot. There are teams that San Francisco's been there a lot over the past 5-7 years where they've gotten in and they've had to get back on the horse and they've replaced quarterbacks. This team was not ready for this run down the stretch because of some of the personnel issues, but I also think eventually they just don't have enough. They don't have enough of their best players that have that it factor. I just want to say that I'm not saying Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, those guys, I've seen them on a Super Bowl run. They got that it factor, you know, like those guys. But you know, Slay gets his surgery. He's out the end of the year. You know, like
maybe they're playing possum.
They're not.
That's what he said.
Maybe they're playing possum. They get Dom back next week for the playoffs.
They need to tell the head coach that they're playing possum.
You know,
he's supposed to be in panic mode at the podium.
It might be part of the script, guys. You know, they playing a Tampa Bay team that is shaky. You know, nice first round.
It was bad news when they started
back around.
When they started shifting the play calling around on defense. Yeah. When they started,
it'd be one thing if they lost that game yesterday because I don't think they're great.
Yeah.
Are they even good?
This is how they lost.
But how they lost that game and how they've lost some of these games over the last 4 to 6 weeks, like the D-line, I love that group. But outside of that and the offensive line, it's hard to see where like the leadership is. I mean, the quarterback's the leader, but he's not playing well.
Both of those.
So who are the guys
that play out of this world to cover for the lack of, I don't want to say skill, but for the lack of production at the other positions?
And listen, the two coordinator thing's a real thing. So their fate might have been sealed before we even knew it. And it just finally caught up where we're like, okay, now we see them for what they are. So, and this happens in the NFL.
Let me ask you this. If you're one of those coordinators and the playoffs come in, like you said, you might know your fate. Like, what are you doing to get ready for this game to give yourself the best shot?
I'm going to play like Tennessee played last week. Well, I'm going to run the ball, right? But everybody on defense has to be flying around. And I'm going to run some trick plays, and I'm going to pull things out of my hat. I might save them for if we get to the second round, but I'm going to pound the ball. And Mike Vrabel does a great job of covering for his team's deficiencies. Where is that right now? Mm-hmm. Because I don't even know what your strengths are. You know what I mean? Your strengths, you've kind of just lost your strengths. You know, you thought about the explosive plays last year outside. They haven't had those. You think about the pounding run game. You think about the
big
pass
stretch
rush.
from AJ in the middle of the season. Like, that was wasted on a great run.
There's just nothing. There's nothing that I'm like, yeah, that's what they do well. They can hang their hat on that. So listen, it's a big story because everybody wants to know what I'm going to say on this show. But when we're talking about 32 teams or 14 playoff teams, they're not relevant like that. And just remember this, Eagles fans, because somebody was complaining last week about Kyle's assessment of the Eagles. And I know, like, if Kyle's team was doing this well over a 5-year period, I'd be like, enough already. Like, I get it. I'd be like everybody else. I'd be fatigued. And I love Eagles fans. But you know what Eagles fans say? No one likes us. We don't care. Don't forget the second part. Don't be complaining that people don't like you. Don't be complaining that people want you. It's a good thing that people say Dallas and Commanders fans are chanting Eagles suck. It's not good right now.
Did you not hear?
But that means
Jimmy Johnson?
You're somebody.
We talked about Jimmy Johnson
said
last week at his induction into the Ring of Honor in Dallas, and he said, "Look, first I want to thank all the people that hate the Dallas Cowboys."
Yeah.
And it's the same reason why you say you should appreciate the fact that people hate you. It's because they hate you because you're on top.